Good morning, everyone. My name is Mallory Cormier, and I am the founder of Save The Buns. Today, we will be diving into our mini-series called A Bun's Eye View, where we will talk to some people who had the opportunity to work with rabbits inside of a laboratory setting. Here with us today, we have Sophie. Welcome, Sophie.
Hey, Mal.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm okay. I'm a little bit tired, but I'm doing well.
That's good. I'm also tired, having some coffee Java.
Awesome.
So I have a couple questions that I'll just fire out there to you. So how long were you in the lab animal field for?
In the lab animal field, like, is this outside of schooling?
Yeah, just like a general, yeah.
Then I would say maybe like 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Maybe 2 to 3 years, I would say.
Okay. And then I know that you worked with rabbits.
Yes.
And so what did you initially think when you first started that job specifically?
When I started the job, I thought it was a little weird because it was like they kind of built on what was going on across the street, which it was already kind of like interesting. It wasn't typically what you see in that field. But I also thought it was really cool because it was like a startup, like just getting off the ground. Everybody that you're meeting is there for the first day. So it was kind of cool to like work with a group of people that you helped start this thing, get it off the ground. But it was also very unconventional, I think, for the lab animal field. It wasn't the typical lab setting. And nothing about that job was typical either. Not the boss, not the people I was working with. It was interesting, but it was fun. And for a while, it was like this really cool, like novel thing, but very quickly that faded.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things you learned about the rabbits while you were working there, like in general about them?
I learned a lot about rabbits. Pretty much everything I know about rabbits, I learned because of that job. Like you learn a couple things here that if you take a lab animal management or any type of animal related course, you learn about the anatomy, but that's pretty much it. Everything else, including things regarding the anatomy that I didn't learn in school, I learned there, which is really cool. Um, I think probably one of the coolest things that I've learned is that rabbits are indeed sentient. Like people think like, oh, they just breed and eat carrots and then they die. But it's more than that. Like we watch them like have connections with their babies and with their cage mate next to them and with us.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was very interesting. Rabbits have feelings.
Yeah, I also learned that too. When I went into the job, I was kind of like, I didn't have a lot of rabbit experience, and you think of like a dog or a cat being more like, affectionate. They're very affectionate creatures. And now having them as pets, it's kind of like, it's a whole other world.
That is my dog. She's unhappy. But yeah, it was very interesting. That's not something I ever considered. I just always thought like it was just another animal that you keep in a cage and it poops and like, but even working like doing school in the lab animal field, you learn about the bond that these smaller exotic animals, as I call them, form with their babies and their mates and things, like and the animal that's next to them. So it, in one sense, it wasn't surprising to see a rabbit and think like, oh man, I have a connection with this rabbit. But in an even greater sense, it was very, very surprising because it's not something I expected.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice, Sophie. actually, this kind of segues into that. So did you ever want to adopt or take one of the rabbits home? And if you did, was there like a favorite bun that you want to talk about?
You know I got a favorite bunny.
Yeah.
I gotta give a shout out to my boy Buddy. He was the best rabbit ever. Literally, Buddy was the best rabbit. Like, I know you have 2 rabbits now.
Yeah.
But I don't think they compared to Buddy.
Okay. So
I really wish I had the opportunity to take him home, because he was
cool.
He was so cool. Like, Buddy was so smart that he learned the sound of my steps when I walked into the door. Like, we taught him, like, he responded to Buddy.
Yeah.
Like, we gave him a name and he learned that his name was Buddy. It was just the most amazing thing. And like, he knew when the food was coming around, and if he didn't get fed first, he would knock his feeder off. And also, if I came in and I didn't talk to Buddy, he would knock his feeder off to like get my attention. Like, he was just the best rabbit, and I miss him very, very much.
He enjoyed getting his head rubbed too. Like, a lot of the rabbits were a little freaked out and scared.
Yes, but he would come to the front of the cage for you to rub his head.
Yeah.
He was such a sweet boy.
Yeah.
I just imagine if I was able to take him with me, he would have lived a longer life.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Sophie. So what, I mean, this one's kind of a loaded, actually, hang on a second. That's not a loaded question. So what did you think after you left the job? You know, like, how was your overall experience? Well, you kind of told us a little bit about that, but like, did you have any feelings after you left? Did you, I mean, I know that you went into schooling and you kind of changed direction. Did you?
I sure did change direction. When I left, I made the decision that I would not work with an animal that size again. And I applied to grad school, which is why I left the job, and I did not apply to any animal programs because I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Like, it's something that I wanted to do all my life, is work with animals and do research on animals. Like, you know, when you're growing up and you hear that people do research on animals, they only show the smiling pictures of people holding a mouse. They don't show everything else.
Yeah.
And then you know, you go through school and you hear that it could be hard, but then you actually get into the job and like, it's really hard.
Yeah.
And by the time I was applying to grad school, I had made the decision that it wasn't for me anymore. And so I actually went to grad school and I started just, you know, I transitioned to studying humans who can give their consent or not.
Yeah.
And I think that was a good decision for me.
Yeah. Well, what you said that it was hard working in the animal testing field. What was hard about it, would you say? What part specifically?
2 things for me. Obviously, the top most difficult thing was the euthanasia.
Yeah.
And because it was happening at such an alarming rate and frequency. I have worked and interned in other places where you don't euthanize that much.
Yeah, so, it was a lot.
Yeah. So it was surprising to me that anybody can do that for very long. But especially, like, I wasn't the only one who bonded with Buddy. Like, everybody loved him, you know? Like, imagine having to euthanize Buddy. Like, I don't know. People bonded with babies and then had to put them down. Like, anyways, that was probably the hardest thing. But the second hardest thing too was, you know, we did some breeding and it was kind of like a forced thing. And having to watch that was hard as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, she also agrees.
Yeah, spicy taco in there.
Yeah, those were 2 points for me as well.
Yeah.
For sure. So as far as your overall views on animal testing, do you think that we should find alternative ways over using animals, or are you kind of in between? Like, what are your thoughts on it as a whole? That's a loaded question.
I'm kind of in between because I feel like we're so advanced in technology that we can find alternatives. Like,
Yeah.
we have self-driving cars now. I feel like somebody can create a model. Like, they create models for everything.
Yeah.
And I don't work in like software design or whatever, but what I was doing in grad school was a lot of like computer stuff, and it just blew my mind. Like, I could get from letters and numbers to somebody's DNA in 2 weeks with a computer. So I'm just like, somebody could probably doing. And in the school that I was in, people did that a lot.
Yeah.
It was just simulations. Like, there are people who went through their entire like grad school program and they never touched an animal, they never touched the cell, they never touched anything but a computer. It was just all simulation.
Wow.
So yeah, I feel like it's possible. And I do also feel like we are transitioning in that direction. Like, we're moving more towards models than like live animals. But at the same time, I also kind of feel like, I don't know, people will never stop doing it. Like, there are some things that I feel like people will never stop doing.
Right. It's definitely not going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, I think if there's a model available, use a model over an animal for sure. But at the same time, I understand why there is research on animals, and that, like, the science behind that makes sense to me. But the science behind transitioning to a better model makes more sense to me.
Awesome. Thank you, Sophie. Very good answer. What else do I have up my sleeve here? Okay. Yes. So if you could describe in one word, like one word to describe your experience, what would it be?
One word?
I know. Kind of a funky question thrown at you.
Can I do like more than one word?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to describe it in a sentence.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. I would say overwhelming. I think one thing I'm learning in my current role is to always go back to your purpose for doing something. And I think, and I don't know, maybe people who still work there do this, but I don't think I was doing that. Like, when we had a day of, can I say how many animals?
Sure.
We put down, or like,
yeah,
hundreds of euthanasia, to not give a very specific number. Those days were overwhelming. Yeah. But I never thought back to like, what we're doing is going to benefit somebody. Like, that faded very quickly. Like, what we're doing will benefit somebody. But stepping away from the job and thinking about what they were doing, like possibly saving people with bleeding issues, like, that sounds like a noble cause, right? But at the time, it was overwhelming.
Yeah. It was hard to see a bigger picture,
Yeah. Even though you're like doing this great thing for humanity, like, it was definitely hard to see.
Okay, that's a good word. Sophie, and then this is like kind of our last question here, but is there anything else that you would want people to know? This is kind of like going out there. Is there anything that you'd want to let people know about your experience?
Yeah. Honestly, I wouldn't wish it on anybody. If someone were to ask me about that position, I would suggest that they don't go into it if they have a soft spot for animals, because I feel like, people were, not everybody, because some people were very like, this is a business, this is
Right.
science, this is a job, we have to do this. But there were people there that were very like sensitive towards the animals. And if you're one of those, yeah. And that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. But if you're one of those people, I like, this field of work is not for you.
Yeah.
Because it'll get very overwhelming very quickly.
Yeah.
And at the same time, if you have the smarts and the know-it-all to like help somebody move to a computer model or something, like, I think you should put your best foot forward and get it done. But not everybody knows how to do that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not for everybody.
Sophie, this was awesome. Thank you so much. Do you have any questions for me, even though I'm asking you the questions?
I would love to know what your word is about the place that you worked, which was the same place that I worked, because we worked together.
My word?
Yeah.
You know what? Give me a second.
Yeah.
My word for that place. It's popping up. I do have a lot of words too, but the one that's popping up the most is wasteful.
Yeah.
It just seemed like there was a lot of waste there, meaning like waste of lives and resources where we could have been doing it. But it just seemed very, wasteful. Just
yeah, for sure. That's a good word. I resonate with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sophie, thank you so much. We're coming to a close here now, guys. So I hope you all have a great day. And there's going to be some more of these popping out. So keep your eyes peeled. And Sophie, thank you again so much for
no problem.
Answering these questions. I'm sure we'll see more of you soon. Thank you so much, everybody.